Hey everybody, it's Tanisha Spain, host of Mid-American Gardener, and as you can see, we are out of the studio and in a greenhouse. We're at Danville Gardens in Danville doing our annual spring preview. That's right, we're going to talk about what plants are going to be hitting the market this year, what you can look for in the nursery when you're going to bring home your healthy plants to put them in your yard, and of course, what we can start planting now in early spring. So we've got a lot of ground to cover. Let's go catch up with Danville Gardens owner Nathan Campbell and start our tour. All right, now we've moved into the production barn. You know, most of us take the winters off gardening, but it doesn't stop in here. There's a lot going on. We've got the mixer back behind us. We've got folks getting plants in baskets that we will be purchasing this spring. So tell us a little bit about what goes on in the off season at Danville Gardens.
So many people think that we just get the plants in and sell them, but we've got to grow them. So we'll get a real small plant in, and then we have to bump it up to another container, a hanging basket, or a 4-inch pot. So this takes some time to grow. The plants just come in, they're just a small plug. And so usually in February we're really ramping up, and some of the crops even are earlier. Some of our ferns start in August. So there's a long crop time that goes into producing this crop. So
how many of these baskets do you think you'll fill between February and opening day?
We do over 30,000 of these, so that's a 10-inch hanging basket. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And then you mix your own potting mix, right?
We do mix our own soil, and then we fill all the pots. We have a machine that does that, but we can fill the pots, and then all the planting is done by hand. So it's a lot of labor.
Now, you start bringing folks back, you said around mid-February, to start creating these baskets. It's just crazy to think that these will be so full and so beautiful in the next couple of months that they'll be ready to take home.
Well, the kind of weather that we've been having, it's been up and down, but these guys need long days, and they need the sunshine and warmth. So the longer the days get, the quicker they grow, and of course there's a lot of fertilizer and warm temperatures in the greenhouse, so that makes all the difference.
And there's a lot of moving parts. I've seen folks back here filling the baskets. We've got folks putting plants in the baskets. Then we've got the full carts going out somewhere. So I mean, there's just a lot of activity.
There's a lot of manual labor here. People think it's just kind of like a little flower shop. It is not. It's very physical. Sometimes we count how many times we move the pots, and it's 10 or 11 times before we sell them.
Wow.
So there's a lot of labor. So yeah, we fill the pot, plant the pot, put it out, put the hanger on it, hang it up, maybe move it a couple times, take it down, ship it, or put it in somebody's trunk and send it home with them. So.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I wonder if the journey that these plants go on from, you know, seed on the truck to get here and then all the way home to their final destination.
A lot of miles.
In my yard, exactly. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about once these are in the baskets, how long do they have to stay in there before they can be taken home?
Okay, usually it's a 10 to 14-week crop time depending on the plant. Like I said, sometimes like the ferns or some of the geraniums is longer, but a lot of the annuals, the petunias that we're, you know, the super petunias that we're known for, that are all over town, those are usually about a 12-week crop. We'll put 3 to 4 plants in each hanging basket, and then about 12 weeks later it's ready to go. And of course that plant's going to grow more over the summer, but it's a nice selling size for the consumer.
And then how do you decide on the color mixes? And
well,
what the themes are?
Yeah, we try to go by what sold well last year, and there's always a couple new varieties that we add in. And it's kind of a guessing game, but there's certain colors, the pinks and purples always sell well, the red, whites, and blues, and hopefully all the avenues that we have to sell them, they all go.
You just kind of learn over the years what folks like.
Try to tweak it a little bit, and you know, say, hey, we sold a little bit more of this last year, and these were a little bit long on. You know, we had some left at the end of the season, so trim that number and add a little bit more to that color. So
excellent. And we talked about giving our plants the absolute best start. You guys make your own mixes here. So what is, I don't want you to tell all your secrets, but what is a good mix? What is a good potting mix?
It's pretty simple. We use peat moss. That's the brown stuff. Peat moss, the little white material in that is called perlite, and it acts for aeration and also holds water. So that's the two main ingredients. We also do the minor elements, like all your zinc, boron, molybdenum. That goes in there, and we put a wetting agent in so it will re-wet when you water the pot.
Gotcha.
That's pretty much it. We don't put any topsoil in it. We used 2 years ago, but it's so hard to get and to have a sterile, weed-free material. We want a nice, light, fluffy mix. You want the water to penetrate, the roots to be able to penetrate, have aeration in there, but you also want it to hold water at the same time. You don't want it real mucky. Some of the mixes out there are real mucky, and the roots actually kind of suffocate, and the plant won't grow well.
Okay, so light, airy mix.
Well draining.
Well draining. Is there any fertilizer in?
Just the minor elements. When we grow the plant, we add water-soluble fertilizer when we water, and that's where we add the fertilizer. As the homeowner gets the pot, they need to continue feeding. That's one of the most common mistakes. People don't fertilize their plants at home. They look beautiful when they leave, but then when they get home, if they don't feed them for a month, they're not going to look good. That's why I tell people, if you don't eat for a month, you're not going to look good.
We're not going to look good.
We try to educate them on that. So occasionally we'll put some time-release fertilizer in there that will last for the summer, but we do sell that, and we sell the water-soluble as well. So
wow,
it's
so
very important.
30,000 buckets are going to come through.
Just on this size.
Wow.
We also have other sizes, so there's lots of stuff coming through.
That's impressive.
Yes.
Okay, on to the next thing. All right, now we are in house one. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the original greenhouse,
Yes, it is.
maybe 100 or so years old?
We think it was built in 1924, 25, so we're pushing 100 years on this greenhouse. So.
I wonder if these walls could talk, right?
Lots going on in here. Yes.
So when we're out shopping and looking for our plants to take home, we hear a lot about root health. We hear a lot about kind of taking a look at the plant to make sure that it's okay before we get it home. So show us what we could do to just take a peek and make sure we're getting a nice, healthy plant. Not
everybody's going to want to take the plant out of the pot, but if you do on this one, you can see we got really good healthy roots. We're looking for good, nice white roots. You don't want something that's not rooted out into the soil, so when you transplant it, it's got a nice start, and it's not having to work with those roots. Another thing that we tell people, make sure it's well hydrated. You don't want to start with a wilted plant. It's going to be stressful. You don't want to talk about some other places, but sometimes things don't get watered, and it makes a big difference. We hear a lot of people say, you know, we bought your plants, they took off better. Hopefully they're starting with a better plant that's been taken care of. Gotcha, gotcha. So if you see some black inside the roots, or what do you need to be concerned about in there? You just want nice healthy green leaves. You don't want dead leaves or black tissue. You can tell by looking usually, hey, this plant looks like, boy, it looks healthy and green. So
and should they just pop right out of the pot? They should pop right out. You know, plant that in there. Usually they're not root bound, so dig that hole and plant it, and away it'll go. Now let me ask you this: what about? It's a lovely sea of green in here now, but what about blooms? If you're looking, let's say it's May. Sure. Do I want something that's full of buds like this, or do I want something that's opened? How do you choose those? The color sells. People want the color, so it's not always that you have to get a plant that's blooming. And some avid gardeners will say, I don't want something that has a lot of blooms, because they want to enjoy the bloom. So we want a little bit of both. We want a lot of buds on there, but some blooms that are there so they can see the color and enjoy the beauty helps. So color sells every time. Okay. Is there anything else, any other tips from a shopping perspective that you can think of to tell folks when they're coming in and looking? Like I said, the biggest thing is probably make sure they're well watered. You don't want to go home with a stressed plant. It needs to be hydrated, you know, good soil mix, and I think you'll be fine. Okay, excellent. All right, now we've moved into house 2, and we're going to be talking about some annuals and perennials for our growing zone. We're in zone 5B in Illinois. Most of our growing area and our viewing area is in that same. So first of all, before we get into annuals and perennials, let's talk about the definition of those two and what the difference is.
We were just talking about this earlier, and people get real confused when they come out, especially new gardeners. They think annuals are going to come back annually every year, and that is not the case. You buy them annually. It's just a one-time deal. Perennials are plants that will come back in your garden year after year.
Now, what's the draw to both of them? I know there's pros and cons to both.
We sell more annuals as a whole just because they bloom quicker, there's more flowers, and they will bloom all summer. A lot of plants, we have several that will bloom 6 or 7 months straight. With perennials, there's a bloom period, a bloom time, anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks, depending on the variety. So you have to plant different perennials to have the color all year. With annuals, you can have that all summer, but you do have to do it again next year.
And do you see a lot of people getting the perennials for, to put in a bed around the annuals that they're going to build?
Sure. A lot of perennials can be a little bit taller, up to 2-3 feet, and a lot of your annuals are usually lower or more vining, several things. So you can have perennials in the back or in the middle of a bed, and then use some annuals in with them. That way you have continual color. Yes.
What are some of the other things that folks come in for when they're looking for a perennial? What are some big sellers here in our area?
We do a lot of hostas. That's a great one for the shade. Hostas and heucheras have been really popular. Astilbe's another good one for the shade. People are always wanting shade. If they've got an established neighborhood and they've got big trees, they want some shade things. So, but on the sunny stuff, we do a lot of daylilies, echinaceas, the rudbeckias. We mentioned peonies earlier. There's just a lot of things. Salvias. There's a lot of different perennials.
Peonies are one of those things that we were talking about, how when they bloom, they're just magnificent to enjoy. And it's just such a short show.
I know it.
Whereas if you've got something like Impatiens or the Tunias, they're just going. Especially if you deadhead them, you get more and more and more. So I understand the draw there.
Sure.
Talking about being in Zone 5, we're all kind of chomping at the bit to get out there. Let's talk about some of those things that we can put out early, because not everything has to wait until Mother's Day weekend.
Right. We've talked about the pansies. They're something that can take a frost, can take a freeze. In fact, we sell those in the fall with our mums, and a lot of times they'll come back in the spring and people don't even know that.
Wow.
That's something that can go out in the spring really early. We don't open until about the second week of April, but you'll see pansies before then and they can go out. Another thing we talked about were the super petunias. And people don't know it, but they can go really cold. Petunias can go into the upper 20s, low 30s, can even frost. We've had the soil even freeze on hanging baskets that we've had outside, and they were just fine 2 hours later.
Wow.
It's amazing. So then we talked about the perennials. If the perennials are established and they've been treated with some cold treatment, some high light, and then a lot of the perennials could go out early April too.
That prompted me to another question. When you get plants from a nursery, you don't have to harden them off, do you?
Normally not. It depends. Several greenhouses, if you have a really warm, soft environment, those plants, it can't hurt if you've got a really drastic change. If you're taking it home and it's 35 or 40 and they've been in a 60 or 70 degree greenhouse, we tell people, watch the first few days, maybe take them in and out of your garage. You don't want to do that too long because they need the high light. So you don't want to do that too long, but people will keep stuff sometimes a couple weeks and it's not good. They need the outside conditions or the high light. So, but if you can harden them off a little bit, watch those first few days, or maybe a really windy day can be stressful on them where we don't have the wind in here. So.
Oh, the wind. That's one people don't even
we
mention.
got lots of wind here.
We hear a lot about the sun and the temperatures, but the wind, that's true.
It's a good day if you can plant and you have a day or two where it's not as windy. Makes a big difference. When we move our product out to our field outside where our mum patch is, we grow about 10 or 15,000 hanging baskets outside. We make sure the first couple days it's not too windy because it make a big difference. It can actually burn your plant more than like a frost or a real hard heat, something like that.
But most of the time when you get your basket from the nursery, it's been put through the ringer.
It should be.
It's withstood the wind, the sun, the cold, and it's ready to go. Okay, let's go check out some of those plants, the earlier plants, the cold hardy things that you can put outside.
Sounds great.
Okay. And now we've reached the part of the show that many of you have been waiting for. We're going to talk about what can go in the ground first, those early cool season plants. So,
Sure.
all right, what can we do? What can we work on?
Right here I've got a few violas. They're in the family with the pansies, and you know, people don't always know about violas, but both of those are very cold hardy, could go out early, late March, early April.
Okay.
We're not open till about the middle of April, but you know, we will have an early day, and if people want to get some, they can get some.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, are these annuals or perennials?
They're just annuals.
Annuals.
Sometimes they go as biennials.
Ooh.
We do sell them in the fall, and they should overwinter. You get 2 seasons. They love it cool. They don't like the heat. So they're not going to bloom all summer like some of the other annuals. They will bloom for a long time in the spring, but they don't always come back. So usually you get 2 seasons out of them. A lot of people don't know that.
No, I
Yes.
didn't know. I learned something else
So
today,
with our
too.
mums, we like to sell the pansies too. We've had them blooming in flower beds here at Christmas time.
Oh my gosh.
So they love it cold.
Excellent. Okay.
Yes.
What else can we get our hands on early and start working on?
We've got a few things in this house too. We've got the PW Color Choice shrubs, and we're pushing a few of those early to get some nice growth. There'll be some flowers, and as long as it's not freezing, if there's some frosted periods, they would be fine as well. Those
And
would
you
be
mentioned
long.
hydrangeas?
Hydrangeas, we've got some lilacs. There's a few of the small trees. There's some arborvitae, spireas, some things. You know, again, it's going to depend on the weather a little bit. Each year's a little bit different. The weather we've been having now, people are getting pretty antsy. But
Oh, I'm sure.
we need another snow or two to make people calm down.
Calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, when we're talking about, you know, the earlier season plants, if we get like a blizzard, I mean, are these guys going to be in trouble? Can they take?
The snow is actually fine.
Okay.
It's kind of like acts like an insulator. People don't know that. It's more the real hard freezes, and that they're really going to nip things. And we always get a question, and this is probably something that you wonder. You know, there's bulbs and things coming up now. Some daffodils are already blooming. You know, is a real cold snap going to hurt those? And it never kills them. It can slow them down. It can burn some blooms, but usually it won't kill the stuff. If it's coming up naturally, it usually can take it. Now there are some rare instances where, you know, some trees died a few years ago. It got so warm, they budded out, and it really zapped them. But most years, if stuff's coming up on its own, it's probably you don't probably need to protect it.
I've got some tulips coming up and some sedum.
They'll just kind of slow down, you know, they'll just kind of sit there and kind of get used to those elements and come on as it gets warmer. So
Excellent.
It's pretty neat how it works.
Well, it sounds like you guys are poised for a fantastic season.
We're excited.
Everything looks really great in here. I'd also like to go take a look at some of the retail.
Sure.
Beautiful, beautiful decor, pottery. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you? Oh, I know. What new things are coming to market this year?
We've got a couple of new, we talked about the Supertunias. We've got a couple new colors in those to look out for. Persimmon, and there's a new improved yellow. A couple of things I can't think of at the moment, but we've got a few varieties, not necessarily a whole brand new plant, but some new varieties that are coming along that we like to showcase. So.
And you guys did some shopping all over the winter for retail on the retail side. Tell us a little preview about that. What was the theme for this year, or was there?
I'm not sure we had a theme, but we do like the garden art, and we usually go to Texas in January. We'll get a load of pottery and metal works and signs and metal animals, so it's a broad range. I think we have something for everybody. So
excellent. Well, thank you so much for letting us come in and do this tour today. Best of luck to you, and I will definitely be back.
Oh, one thing I wanted to add: this is our 30th year.
30 years. We just celebrated our 30-year
awesome.
anniversary on our show too. So 100 years in business, 30 years under your ownership, many more to come. We love Danville Gardens, so thank you so much for inviting us.
Thank you.
All right. Being out at a garden center always makes me, especially this time of year when we're just so close, makes me want to get out there. But we've got a lot of plants inside that could probably use a little attention.
Yeah, it's a little too chilly to do a whole lot outside, but definitely the right time to start messing around and scratching that itch with indoor
Yes.
plants.
So it's officially okay to start repotting our plants for the upcoming year.
Yep, because we're heading right into the spring, get them situated as the warm weather starts. Yep.
Excellent. All right, Jen, so tell us what we're going to be doing today.
So what we're going to be doing today is something I've been putting off doing, which is, this show is great for me to get that stuff checked off my to-do list. I need to repot this ZZ plant, and this is one that one of my enabling friends on the show, the team of Ella and Karen, showed this during the pandemic when we were on Zoom still. This is called Raven, and it is a ZZ plant. You might be more familiar with the green version. This one's kind of a dark purple foliage. And the green version gets big, it gets huge, like 2 to 4 feet on average. The Raven stays smaller. It stays about 2.5 feet tall and wide. So this I bought probably in the summer of 2020. I think it was definitely like in the pandemic times. What's also kind of neat is when it has new foliage, it comes out this sort of bright green color and then turns into this deep purple. And you don't need a lot of times plants that have this sort of coloration need a lot of sun to produce that pigment. And this just grows in the same whatever light you got conditions that ZZ plants tolerate.
So even that new bright green one with no light, it'll darken up to the rest of the foliage? Huh,
yeah.
That's fascinating.
And so I noticed last summer that it's starting to distort the pot.
I was just going to ask, how do you know when it's time?
For this, I mean, so you've got a few roots coming out the bottom. That's a good indicator. With a lot of plants, they'll start to wilt in between waterings, and that's a sign that they are really starting to get root bound. ZZ plant is a really low maintenance plant, and it doesn't really wilt like that. I mean, you can set it and forget it for a way lot longer than probably is.
They can take a lot of
they
abuse.
can take a lot of abuse.
Or neglect or
right.
both.
I've actually seen some in the greenhouse at the U of I actually break the pot.
Oh, wow.
They're way beyond needing a bigger pot. But so this is a good example, though. This is how I bought it. It was in this ceramic pot, and it has no drainage in the bottom. Let's see if I can get that in the shot better. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You wouldn't want to plant it directly in here because it would have no way for the water to drain out. But I can plant in just a nursery pot and just set it inside. And that is just a common thing that I see people having problems with houseplants. And it's like, but the pot was so pretty and I got it on vacation and whatever. Yeah, use it, but use it in a different way.
Yes, yes.
So we're going to try to take this guy out, and we're going to I got a bigger plant pot, and
yeah, we were texting, and she used this opportunity
to
go buy a new pot. She always does that, you know.
It's for the show.
It's for the show. I'll go get a plant or a pot for the show. So, do you wait?
Thank you for enabling me.
Yes. Do you wait until the plant is relatively dry before you repot, or is it easier? Or I'm always looking for the hack of the
I watered
thing,
it a little bit. I'll be honest. I watered it a little bit, thinking that it might help it get out of the pot.
Okay.
Sometimes in situations like this, it can be so tight that you end up having to cut the pot off.
Yes.
I hope not for this because I didn't try it ahead of time. But I was guesstimating. This is not do as I say, not as I do. I was remembering about how big the plant was when I was shopping, and so I guessed pretty well.
Yeah, you did good.
You don't want to go more than an inch or two bigger on all sides when you're choosing a new pot, because you want to avoid having this root-bound plant in a sea of soil, a ton of soil with no roots in it, because that will hold too much moisture and can be bad for root rot and that sort of thing. So the good thing about ZZ plant is it's pretty resilient, and it should just pop right out, we hope. See, we kind of squeeze it to try to loosen it up. If I have to, we can get pruners. And
I can tell, you can see the bulges where it's kind of
really distorted.
pushing up against the edges there.
Darn it, I was hoping to reuse this pot, and I didn't want to break it.
Yeah,
but if
we don't throw anything away.
No, we don't. Especially because it fits perfectly in that white ceramic pot. So, and I am going to just kind of break some of these off that are growing out the bottom.
Not too bad. You're not wrestling yet.
Here it comes.
Loosening up. There we go.
So look at that. That is definitely a lot of roots.
She was ready.
Yeah. Now this is a plant that a lot of people, when ZZ plants first came out, I was like, there's no way I'm spending $20 on a teeny tiny plant. They are horribly hard to propagate, and that's why they're so expensive. A friend had one, and we tried to divide it up because it looks like it would be dividable, and it didn't work.
It's not
No, it
dividable.
didn't work. It didn't work at all. There is on the you can kind of see it on here. There's kind of these almost potato-like structures that they grow from, and you would think that you could just break one off, and it just did not take.
Really? I did not know that. I've never split one of these before, but I just assumed that.
It grows in areas where you have like wet season and dry season, so that's part of its resiliency.
Gotcha.
But how it's propagated is by these leaflets, and they actually will grow a new plant from the leaflet, and it takes years. The stuff I've read says about 18 months to go from a leaflet to having a few roots on it. So
oh my gosh.
you can appreciate the time that goes into producing a plant for sale. That's why they cost as much as they do, because they've spent years in a greenhouse somewhere.
Wow. Okay. We've got about 30 seconds.
Okay.
That went really fast.
So
No,
that
it's
did
okay.
go really fast.
How much soil do you put in the bottom before you
Figure out how high you want it in
to
the
be
pot.
flush with the?
You want to leave about an inch and a half so that you can water and not overflow.
Okay. All right. Well,
That
thank you,
went way
Jen, for
fast.
giving us a repot tutorial, because we've all got repotting to do. And thank you so much for watching. And we will see you next time on Mid-American Gardener. Good night.